these politicians their motivation is to manage the spread of this thing, right? If it means shutting businesses down, they're going to shut businesses down, right? Ultimately, what are the consequences that they are trying to avoid? Well, they're going to be judged on their, re-election campaigns and what have you on the spread of this thing, not how many small bits. It's very unfortunate, but this appears to be the case that they're being judged more on these COVID numbers, deaths and hospitalizations than they are whether small guys like you and I go out of business. So if we don't somehow create consequences for them for keeping us shut down for who knows how long, if there's no consequences on that side of the table, I'm just going to go this path for as long as humanly possible, because that ultimately is going to help, my objectives as a politician or as the Department of Public Health.
Right.
It's not the Department of Public Health's job to keep us in business.
Right. Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Masters in Fitness Business Podcast, where you get to stand on the shoulders of giants. And today I bring you a giant in person, a true giant, a Greek giant, Ted Theodoropolus. Did I get that right? Theodoropolus?
Yeah.
It's a lot of syllables, folks. But I mean, he's a tall guy for a Greek guy, 6'5", and built like a brick shit house. But he's also owner of 4 burn body boot camps here in St. Louis. And he also headed the coalition to lobby the St. Louis County executive to make sure that some of the smaller studio and small group fitness studios weren't lumped into the big box gym. So he's kind of leading the political charge for us smaller studios here in St. Louis to see if we can get some concessions and stay open and make money. So Ted, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So before we jump into, let's just jump right into the coalition. So once we had the shutdown, you had your 4 boot camps going. 1 had just opened up. Actually, 2 had just opened up, right?
So one wasn't open yet.
Okay.
Our third one had just opened in December. So it was open about 4 months.
Okay. And then COVID hit and we had to shut down, right?
Yeah.
So what made you want to go out and try to lobby the St. Louis County executive?
Well, it was, seemed to be some discrepancies with their thought process in terms of, I don't know if you remember, but they were talking about opening casinos.
Yep.
So they were going to open casinos before gyms, which really just didn't make any sense at all unless, big money was a factor in the equation, which, to be honest, it usually is.
Right.
So, I got together with probably about 10, 15 gym owners that I just happen to know personally. I'm new to St. Louis, but, social guy, get out there and work out at other people's gyms and, come meet people like you and try and build a network. So I tapped into that network. We got about 10, 15 people. And then those people, went out and tapped into their network. We ended up with about 40 owners of 40 gyms. There were probably low 30s owners, but several were multi-unit owners like myself.
Okay.
So we had about 40 gyms represented.
And some of these were your competitors, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Burn Boot Camp and Orange Theory Fitness. I mean, we're somewhat niche in terms of we're probably 97, 98% female.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't hesitate to open up right next to a Orange Theory. They're going to do their thing. We're going to do ours.
Mm-hmm.
So because we have a niche, it's I felt a little more comfortable kind of going down this path.
Mm-hmm.
But man, these have been great relationships that we built, even though we, quote unquote compete, we stay in touch, and we're actually trying to put together a strategy now for the next anticipated round of restrictions, whatever that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
We all feel like something is absolutely on the horizon. So we're trying to get ahead of it and collecting data and those sorts of things. But so I put that network together. We wrote a letter, didn't send it immediately to the county executive. We sent it to every reporter we knew, and it got traction pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up on all 3 network news stations here in St. Louis almost immediately. And then Vic Faust here, who's with Fox. Yeah, he's with Fox. He got me on his radio show 101.7.
Oh yeah, talk radio. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I know what you're talking about.
Had me on there twice, and then we ended up on another round after the meeting with the county executive, which we got. The press kind of wanted a debrief and an understanding of how that went. So the press was very helpful for us to get their attention, and we can talk about what I think the results of our efforts provided, but that's kind of how we did it and why.
Okay. So walk us through that process, because I'm curious. Like, how do you? So you sent the letters out to the reporters, and the media responded. So what was this next step to get in front of the county executive and the health department?
Well, so after we had the news segments run, and I put an envelope in the mail and formally mailed them a letter, and then I also reached out. I just called the number in the phone book and talked to somebody there and said, "Hey, look, this is who I am. We're going to be on the news tonight. We'd really appreciate the opportunity to plead our case with the county executive. We have a proposal. We'd like to hear his thoughts on that." So that guy passed the information along. He became a contact for me. We kind of brokered the meeting through him. They were getting blasted at the time. It wasn't just gym owners. I mean, there's residents that were calling in to report violators. There's other business, restaurants got crushed through this thing.
Yep.
All the restaurant owners. I don't remember them getting organized. Maybe they did. I don't know. It seemed like we were one of the few industries that, at least that I saw, that really tried to put together a focused effort.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how the process went.
Yeah. So let's talk about the impact that organizing all the gym owners had, because I know I saw you on the news, and then a buddy of mine, John Farkas, passed along the petition, signed the petition. So let's talk about what impact you had on gyms reopening, specifically the small group fitness in the studios, and then with that knowledge, how can we best prepare, position, and petition ourselves for any impending shutdown that might be coming?
So the strategy that we used, which ultimately was not successful, but it's what we used to try and leverage a meeting, was these were all boutique owners. So, no Club Fitness or Golds or Planet Fitness, no big box gyms. And basically our argument was that because we're, for the most part, instructor led, that we can control movements within the facilities. Like at Burn, we taped off 6x6 squares on our exercise floor, and we have a trainer to make sure people stays in them. We sprayed down. We had a staging area where people would put their equipment down, and then it would get sprayed in between camps, and then restocked for the next. So everybody always had clean equipment. They stayed in their spots. We controlled movements in and out of the gyms. We forced them to walk through and wash their hands on the way. I mean, it's just a completely different scenario than when you walk into, club. I'm not trying to beat Club Fitness up here. They did a good job too, but it's just a very different strategy.
Right.
You walk in there, you put your keys up, you can go anywhere.
Right.
And they have such a large number of people that contact tracing becomes difficult. It's extremely easy with us.
Right.
We were on capacity restrictions, so on the high side, I think we could have like 35 people in a camp. So if somebody let us know that they were COVID positive, we let everybody know in that camp.
Right.
And and then we recorded the data and would make note of anybody who came back and said that they'd also contracted it. We had a really, really low, I don't know what you want to call it, transmission rate. I think we had less than 5. I think the number was 3, and we had almost 2,000 members pre-COVID. That number's obviously quite a bit smaller now, but so we had a good story to tell. after we open. So now our strategy for the next round is, let's take that data that we all have, us, you, Jim, the Orange Theory down the street. Let's compile that data and let's present it and say, hey, look, the transmissions are, spiking, but they're not. It's not happening at these small gyms primarily, because there's studies out there. There was just one released yesterday that I was telling you about, which don't paint a pretty picture. But again, you're lumping all gyms together, where again, there's limited opportunity to contact trace. There's an impossibility to keep people, orchestrated in any sort of fashion. You go elliptical over here, then you go lift weights for a while, then you go to the pool. So we really want to be treated differently. Ultimately, we weren't successful with the county executive in accomplishing that. We did accomplish a few other things. So going into the next round, we're just going to try and show data, and hopefully that's compelling enough to make a difference.
Yeah. And you brought up, when we were talking earlier before we started recording, you brought up a good point in that, number one, that in this instance, in a lot of instances, the politician, whoever's in charge, the head politician in charge, passes the buck or defers to, like, in this case, the health department, right? Well, the health department, they're a bunch of scientists. They don't know about the gym business. So you want to give that example that you gave me that illustrated their lack of knowledge about the gym business and then the resulting restrictions they were trying to put on us as a result?
Yeah, so that's one of the few things I feel like we actually accomplished with this effort. Is I don't feel like they let us open any sooner. I don't feel like they could have possibly kept us closed one more day without some serious consequences. People were ready to go back to the gym. One thing that I do think we accomplished is, I know we accomplished, was that the health department sent me and the other people that were at the table, were other gym owners, the draft document outlining the restrictions for reopen, and some of them were crazy. The big one in particular was they wanted 12 feet of distance. My comment back, first of all, we had a meeting with that group of owners. This wasn't Ted talking. I wanted to represent the group. And we all kind of agreed that, at 12 feet of distance, we can't conduct business. It's not viable. And just keep us closed, because you might be able to have some sort of a discussion about rent concessions if you're closed. If you're open, you're reducing my ability to have those conversations. So you're hurting me by letting me open with restrictions like that, not helping me. And then St. Louis, you have St. Louis City, and then you have St. Louis County. St. Louis City is not in St. Louis County, so they completely different restrictions. Well, St. Louis City had, I think, an even bigger gap in their understanding of fitness, and they banned treadmills. So in June 15th, when gyms inside St. Louis City were allowed to reopen, treadmills had to be shut down.
Not Stairmasters, not ellipticals, not
rowers,
bikes or rowers.
Yeah, just treadmills. And again, it just shows a complete lack of understanding. So anyway, I think that was the kind of the one area that we moved the dial a little bit, was I do feel like we influenced the restrictions. And something else we did that we accomplished, which is also value add, is we established this network now. So going into round two, we've got mechanisms, we got text threads, we got a Facebook group, and we're ready to go.
Yeah.
We're still formulating.
And you're collecting that data?
Yeah. So we put together a Google form, and we're going to send it to all the other gym owners and talk about how many opportunities there were for transmission. So basically, most of us are running like MindBody or some other system that we can run the reports.
Yeah, CRM, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how many people attended classes, over that time span from June 15th till today? How many people reported that they were COVID positive? And then how many other people reported back in that they were also, that attended camps with them, because we let everybody know in every camp when someone raised their hand and say, I was positive, like going back till we, kind of extrapolate backwards, say, okay, you were tested on Wednesday, but you were symptomatic on Monday.
Right.
So not just the people on Wednesday, we let the people on Monday know as well. And, again, I don't know the exact number of people who reported themselves as positive initially, but the transmission number was low single digits.
Yeah, and it's been the same with us. We've had, since June, we've had 2 reported positive cases here and no additional transmissions. So, but getting back, I think if you want to, and just for the listeners out there and wherever you are, your local community or area, if you want to have an impact on the restrictions, when you can open, all of that, you have to get organized. And Ted was motivated enough to organize us here in St. Louis to get those owners, create that network, create the Facebook group, meet with the county executive, the petition, reach out to the press, which I think is really powerful. That's probably the best way to get the politicians' attention for sure, is to get in front of the camera. And then now you're collecting that data so that we are prepared and organized going in, which I think is 1,000 times more effective than just 40 gym owners individually kind of pounding at the door. Correct?
Yeah, and this is the way I see it, because a few folks are like, "Yeah, we're really going to move the dial." Like, here's the deal, the way I see it. So these politicians their motivation is to manage the spread of this thing, right? If it means shutting businesses down, they're going to shut businesses down, right? Ultimately, what are the consequences that they are trying to avoid? Well, they're going to be judged on their, re-election campaigns and what have you, on the spread of this thing, not how many small bits. It's very unfortunate, but this appears to be the case, that they're being judged more on these COVID numbers, deaths and hospitalizations, than they are whether small guys like you and I go out of business. So if we don't somehow create consequences for them to not, or for keeping us shut down for who knows how long, if there's no consequences on that side of the table, I'm just going to go this path for as long as humanly possible, because that ultimately is going to help, my objectives as a politician or as the Department of Public Health.
Right.
It's not the Department of Public Health's job to keep us in business.
Right.
It's not in their charter, not their problem. Right. So how do we create consequences for the people that ultimately are making the decisions on whether or not we stay in business? Well, we appeal to the public, and we get in front of the camera and we share data. I plan on, the first thing I'm going to do, just like the last time, once this data is compiled, I'm going right to the press with it and say, hey, look, here's our story. We're petitioning the county executive to have this conversation before restrictions are defined. And I feel like if we don't do that, if you sit around and wait for the restrictions to happen and then start your process, you're a day late and a dollar short, right?
Yeah.
Try and get in on the front end of this and influence ahead of time. And again, the press, the public eye is a great motivator for them. If the story is out in the press that especially boutique gyms aren't spreading it and they're shutting down boutique gyms, well, we had a couple thousand clients. You got lots of clients. There'll be tens of thousands of voters out there. They're going to be pissed off and saying, hey, you're shutting these guys down. They've shown you the data that it's not them causing the transmissions.
Right.
So I feel like that will create some accountability. How far it'll move the dial, I don't know.
That's a really valid point. So yelling and banging on the door of the health department isn't really good, because they don't care. Like you said, that's not their motivation. That's not their mission to keep small businesses like us open. You're absolutely right. It's to keep the public safe.
Yep.
So you have to create some kind of motivation for the politicians. The way you do that is through that grassroots effort and getting in front of the media and getting that story out there, creating that movement, if you will. Yeah, that's a valid point. So what do you see, like, because you have your ear to the ground, so to speak, on kind of what's coming down the pipe? Because I know you said you looked at the data on hospitalizations in Missouri. You couldn't get it on St. Louis County. You looked at the hospitalizations, the case numbers, all of that. So what is that picture painting for you? What picture are those numbers painting for you, and what do you see coming as a result of that?
Yeah, so it's not good. So right now there are, as of this morning, there were about 2,400 hospitalizations in the state of Missouri for COVID. Again, you can't break it down by county, but what it does do is it shows the trend line from, it looks like maybe early April till now, and we're higher than we were on the peak of that first outbreak for hospitalizations. Cases, I don't pay a lot of attention. I know the press does because they love to dramatize, this thing, but
I know testing's up, so the cases are going to be up. Yeah,
exactly. Right. So I think, but hospitalizations is a valid metric in understanding what a public health impact is. So it's not going in a good direction at all. And we're not even in it's, up until yesterday, it was in the 70s.
Yeah.
So as we get forced more and more indoors, man, that trend's going to continue. There's not a doubt in my mind that the restrictions are coming. Chicago, Friday before last, they shut down all bars and restaurants.
Yep. No inside dining. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So, I feel like, where else did I hear? Somewhere else here in the States, they shut down gyms. I can't remember where now. But anyway, everything's pointing in that direction. It's just a matter of time. I would say one positive thing about some of that study that came out this week, and it was in the journal Nature, was the article I read about it. I'm sure you can Google and find it. One positive outcome of that. So basically they listed like the top 4 places that, spread COVID. Gyms was in there, restaurants, church, I think was one of them. I forget what the others were. It was a short list.
Yeah.
But again, grouping all gyms together,
mm-hmm.
Which is a problem. And then on the positive side of that was they did the math and they said, okay, what are the viable paths for dealing with a situation? They looked at if you limited capacity to 50%, 30%, 20%, closed down altogether, what impact would that have on deaths? And they found that the sweet spot was limiting capacity to 20%, not a complete shutdown. Again, that sucks, but it's better than being shut down completely, I think. If it was any lower than that, it'd be a slam dunk no. But
mm-hmm.
I think we would rather have 20%, the ability to have 20% capacity than nothing, especially in these cold winter months.
Yeah.
So that's where I see things heading. I do think that, and Sam Page, who's our local county executive, has said that he plans to implement new restrictions incrementally. So that tells me he's probably gonna, right now we're at 50%, probably gonna take us to 25. Whether or not we get full shutdown, only time will tell.
Yeah, but I think you raised some key points there, some key bullet points. One, you said, get the data and position yourself, get out ahead of this with the story that you're telling, the movement that you're trying to create in the press and in the media to motivate the politicians, get the data to prove that gyms are safe or studios are safe. And then the studios need to make sure that they're doing everything that they can to keep COVID out of their gyms. Because I get a feeling that there are some gym owners out there, they're like, oh, this is bullshit. This is all gonna, blow over any minute, then we'll get back to normal, blah, 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 blah. That's not gonna happen anytime soon. If we ever get back to normal. I can't even remember what normal is. It's been so long since we've been normal. But get out ahead of this thing. So we need to make sure that we're doing everything we keep safe, be proactive, and get out ahead of this. And then prepare for that 20% capacity. You can do that by seeking rent concessions from your owners.
Mm-hmm.
then also preparing, like you were talking about, like if this continues to go, you need to run your camps outside, putting in tents, and then you got to get permission to jackhammer into the parking lot, heaters, all of that stuff. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, we've gone through the process. We got on Google Maps and took, the satellite view of our lots for each retail location and plotted out, hey, this is where we would put the tents. We're using 400 square foot tents. We haven't pulled the trigger on any of those. This is the plan. And, that will 6x6 is 36 square feet, 400 person tent will fit 11 people. 10 was a magic number for the CDC in the beginning. So, if we have multiple 400 square foot tents with heaters coming in each side, maybe plastic along the back, we're just starting to plan that out. We're getting permission from landlords to do that. I'm already prepping landlords we're going to have a conversation around, some sort of rent concessions. And then you got to go talk to the vendors and, that provide these, again, if you're going to go outdoors or, just figure out what the picture is going to look like if you go down that road. Even, we were given 20% discount to our members during the first shutdown who did stick with us. We gave them that option. We've been discussing, are we going to do that again? So don't wait until it happens, man. Have your plan ready to execute as soon as the news, because they're not going to give any lead time.
No.
I mean, it's going to be days at most. Usually it's very like 1 or 2 days. So you're not going to have time to react to this. You got to start working on it now.
Yeah. And we're not going to fall for that bullshit 2 weeks. We're going to close for 2 weeks.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be a lot longer than 2 weeks. I can guarantee you that. So yeah, you got to prepare for the long haul. So a lot of great takeaways, man. Thanks for agreeing to come on. I'm glad that we met. It was kind of odd how we met, but I'm glad we did. And thanks for coming on and sharing that information. I think it's some real good information. I always end this podcast with 3 questions. It's usually my favorite part of the episode because we get some of the best answers. So because we kind of go off reservation a little bit. So my first question is, what has been your most successful failure? And by that, I mean, at the time, it seemed like a devastating loss that you weren't going to be able to recover from, but you were able to take lessons from that you were able to use to propel you to greater success down the road.
My first business. So I started down the entrepreneur path really young. I wasn't even old enough to drink. I was 20 years old and I started a collection agency. Long story how that happened, but it happened. And, I had goals for what we wanted to get. I mean, we wanted to build it and exit. And, we started charting those out pretty early. And, by the time we understood the dynamics of how we had positioned ourselves, with our industry focus and the way we had built our business model, there was no way we were going to get to the revenue numbers necessary. It would have taken 20 years, which was, so, when I look at that, was it a failure? Well, we didn't meet our goals, but, what I did do is I learned so much from the mistakes that I made. And, because ultimately we could have gotten there had we made different choices, but we were really proactive about, all right, where do we want to be goal wise? But then how we got there, there was a lot of happenstance that guided that path. So, with Burn, for example, that was a very intentional, like, I'd never stepped foot in St. Louis before we moved here to do it. It was a spreadsheet with, demographics, and we got here and really liked it. So yeah, I kind of learned a lesson from that, a lot of people fall into businesses, they're doing something on the side, they start making a little money, they quit their day job and they go attack it. And they never really get into the planning phase of it. They just kind of take it as it comes.
Right.
And that's fine for a lifestyle business. But if you're gonna you have goals to maybe one day exit or scale, and you got to really do the planning up front.
Gotcha. And kind of know, start with an end in mind, so to speak. Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. And then my next question is, since you've been in the fitness industry, outside of COVID, because nobody saw this coming, what has been the biggest surprise that you've had to deal with that you did not see coming?
Besides COVID?
Yeah.
That is a great question. So we were very lucky with burn. And, I've only been professionally in the fitness industry for less than 4 years. I've been, I started lifting weights when I was in my early teens. So I've always been into fitness, but not as a business venture. One of the bigger challenges, great problem to have, was honestly, it was kind of our early success. So we scaled very quickly and we totally outgrew the physical footprints for our first 2 gyms.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in negotiations with our landlord in O'Fallon. We were going to take over the place next door and had an architect in there drawing plans. That's definitely not the case anymore. I'm glad we never pulled the trigger on that.
Uh-huh.
But that was a curveball I wasn't expecting. I thought things would kind of ramp up slowly. They ramped up really quick, and it was a good problem to have, but still a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. In what way?
Well, because customers, like, we would have sometimes 60, 70, 80 people in a camp in a 4,500 square foot building. And there's, 400 square foot childcare. So that now you're down to 4,000 square feet. And, sometimes it wasn't the customer service experience that we wanted to deliver.
Gotcha. Okay.
Too crowded, couldn't give enough attention. Now we mitigated that pretty well. We would bring on multiple support trainers. We did everything we could, but the physical limitations were, they were a challenge.
Yeah. And I've heard that, like, sometimes early success can be the enemy of greater success down the road, because you think it's easy. It's put it on automatic pilot and all of this stuff. And then that confidence, that hubris can come and bite you in the ass a little bit.
Yeah, we definitely didn't suffer from that. I've had enough experience with failure as an entrepreneur to know how blessed we were, and we didn't take it for granted. And I think it's ultimately going to be the reason, that early success, why we don't fail through this, because we had a really strong, loyal following, and they have stuck with us really well. We're down double-digit percentages, but man, I know guys closing shop. There's another franchisee not too far from here had to close their doors. We definitely, I'd had enough failures to know that this was special, and we needed to not take it for granted.
Yeah, harness it a little bit. All right, good, man. All right, then my last question is, where do you go for your personal and professional development?
That's a great question. So I actually don't like to read. Puts me to sleep.
Yep.
But I listen to a ton of audiobooks. So, I got Audible subscription. I do a lot of podcasts. I'm a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization. You familiar with them?
Yep. Is that YPO?
So there's YPO, which the revenue threshold I think is 10 million, and then EO, which is 1 to 10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think my former brother-in-law is in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm a member of EO, been one for a while. And I learned so much from interacting with other business owners and, learning from their experiences. They put you in forums of, 8 to 10 people that you meet with monthly and share everything in terms of personal issues you have, personnel issues, financing problems, all these sorts of things. And everybody, they don't put 2 people from the same industry in a forum. So, I'm hearing my last forum, there was a guy going to a big janitorial company, another guy IT consulting, another dude had a staffing firm, another guy had a product company he was selling on Amazon. And man, getting all those different perspectives on issues that you're facing was just it's a valuable learning experience.
Nice. So what are some of the books you've listened to recently?
So we use a system called Traction. It's called what's called EOS. The book is called Traction by Gino Wickman, and this book has been a game changer. My business before Earn was consulting. In fact, I still do it. We adopted this system called EOS, and I'm rereading that book probably once a year. It does all of we do weekly meetings. We call them level 10s. We do quarterly personal objectives, personal business objectives, and we do an annual retreat where we set business objectives for the entire year. We just did it for 2021. So it's a discipline. It's got routines. It's got templates. Your 3-year plan and your how you evaluate hiring new talent. Anyway, I'm constantly referring back to that book. That's my latest one. Another one is Effective Executive by Peter Drucker.
Yep, I've heard of that.
Yeah, that one is a kind of a dry read, but there's some really good info in that. Anybody who has not read Traction, I highly recommend it. It's been a game changer for us.
Awesome. And then I'm a big believer in peer groups because, especially like you said, where you get different industries, because that's where you kind of realize that business is business. A lot of the principles cross over regardless of the industry. Yeah. And then, a lot of times sometimes you can be in your business like this, and they kind of help you see it from here.
100%.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, man. This has been great. Been good getting to know you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yep. All right. Thanks, guys.